God's peace and joy are mine. So this gets into really an extension of the previous lesson. So hopefully you recognize that it is fully possible for you to discover what is, say, the peace and joy of God, and discovering what it is that, say, and if you remember at all, I often say, love is what I am, peace is how I feel, and joy is the expression. So putting it in that fashion, that to say love is what I am, you can kind of see why say the peace and joy in this title doesn't mention the idea of love. What love, joy, peace and joy is mine. These are more so essentially the possessions in which you can have as actual experience, because love is what you are, as we have of course discussed in many different separate previous lessons. So this recognition is that to feel peace is essentially to not interfere with the fact of what you actually have. So this is always what you have. You always have peace, and joy is the natural expression of peace. That peace isn't somberness, it isn't melancholy, it is, which is often misunderstood to be, it is actually what joy is often looking like. So joy is something pretty phenomenal, and I would relate it to more nirvana. And what many people understand through explaining in my death experience, the joy in which I felt and how I explain it is even to the most happiest, joyous day of my life, or many lives, or whatever, that I remember and recall, the many experiences I have, that the joy I felt during that time that was literally obliterating, because there's no really words for it, was in the sense the joy of my life, or the happiest day of my life, was not even, say, 1% of the joy in which I was feeling at that time. That it was absolutely, literally obliterating of my experience of who I am, and there was nothing else experienced. Now, this is pretty intense. This is not required for you to achieve today, but it is entirely possible. So we just want to grasp that, recognizing that the peace and joy are mine, and the goals and the gifts and such, and what this is in the sense of recognizing is more so about the not interfering part, that we often talk about the judgments that are made. So when you are having resentments and grievances, you're making judgments of the situation, of the person, of what is seeming occurring, and the whole idea that you're in a world. So these things are interfering of recognizing the peace that is expressed and the joy that is from it. Okay? You can't see that. You can't see the reality of who you are. You can't know who you are. You can't recognize what love is because you see something else. So the interfering, and try not to interfere today, as this lesson so states, is next to impossible in the perspective of that totality of your reality. You see a world, you are interfering with the totality of what your peace and joy actually is. You can't see it because you see resentments and grievances that you call a physical world. So it literally is a representation of what you see and experience. So this is attempting, again, black and white perspective of saying that if you completely accept the gifts of God, you will see a totally different world, totally different experience. That transparent, illuminated reality. Now, I want to emphasize that in your perspective, you'll see a transparent, that means everything is transparent, you can see through it, and it literally glows. Everything that you think of as physical is actually spiritual. Okay? So we really have to emphasize that. And that the joy and the peace is a natural thing that sees that. It's how you think. So when you think in this fashion, when you really reach this perspective, it naturally changes everything that you see, because it's one and the same. The inside is the same as the outside. So while you see physical, you have to admit to yourself, I am interfering. I am seeing resentments and grievances in my way of perceiving the transparent and illuminated reality, the perspective of this physical world. So as seemingly as that makes it sound like it's almost a little farther to achieve, take the necessary steps, the little steps that you see and understand right now. I'm just telling you how it is. There is more than just, oh, I'm at peace today. Okay, I'm at peace. And yes, every time you have a seeming opposing opposition or will with an argument or disagreement with somebody else, then what a perfect opportunity to use them in getting your healing done, right? This same healing to achieve that perspective. So in that perspective, there is no difficulties with other people. No. You can't be in that at the same time. You can't have opposition and unity at the same time. Okay? So it gets a little complicated when you think you can. When you try and stuff these two worlds at the same place and not just admit that you're really just in the physical world, you still have resentments and grievances. Okay? So of course, yes, it does take that absolute state of honesty and acceptance of who you are, what you believe yourself to be, in order to actually change what you believe yourself to be. So yes, when you, even if you think you're going a long way, you got really far, you're doing a great job, that's an amazing perspective that you're achieving, and yet then you all of a sudden upset at this or upset at that, let's admit, let's get real, let's get honest with ourselves, and say, my brother, peace and joy I offer you, that I may have God's peace and joy as mine. Or, my brother, peace and joy I offer you, that I may have God's peace and joy as mine. So we're literally trying to adjust and change our minds to recognizing that they can be at peace and I can be at peace if we just simply recognize what we actually are and what the intended gift of this experience of reality actually offers. So that transparent and illuminated reality, to get another little detail here, is what is referred to as the Garden of Eden. And in that perspective, there is no opposition. It is the intended dream reality that God has intended for you to experience. Mm-hmm. This is entirely possible for you to achieve, and I refer to it as ascension. But you, as I made that A Course in Miracles intensive course, it was ascend this time during the lessons, and to actually achieve that perspective. Now, that's what occurred in my, say, death experience. I call it a multidimensional death experience, because I'm not going to call it a near-death experience, as so many like to refer to it as, because I, had literally no self that was living at the time. So in this understanding is what you are attempting to achieve in the totality of what A Course in Miracles has to offer. To have no self, no personal self, no identity and ego, is to see the totality of reality as it actually is and was intended for you to experience. The gifts of God are mine today.